Hey guys, welcome back to NsomniaksDream, and this video is, as the title suggests, my entry for the NYX Face Awards 2017. For those of you who don't know what that is, I will happily link it down below so that you can check it out for yourself. I can tell you right now, guys, that no matter what happens, I am so happy with this look. It took tons of prep, prop building, and quite a few hours of filming, but this may stand as one of my most favorite looks to date. If you're new here and would like to join the Team Dream family, then please hit that subscribe button. Or if you just want to see how to become a badass dragon warrior, then just keep watching. So to get this one started, I needed to block out my brows. For this, I used the classic glue stick method and just applied about 3 coats of glue, first by brushing it on, flattening down the brow hairs, and using my spatula to really flatten it out. You can also use a bit of water on your fingertips to really blend out the edges and make sure you get a smooth surface. And then while waiting for the layers of glue to dry, I just took my NYX Correct and Concealer palette and used the green color over top of any spots I had on my face, as well as used the yellow and salmon color on top of my brows and underneath my eyes, just to help block out the color a little bit of my brow hairs and my dark circles. Patting the cream color on will help that you don't move any of the glue that you already applied, and then you of course want to set it with a translucent powder so it doesn't move on you. Now that we have a good base, we can move on to the foundation part, and for this I just took a purple cream product and mixed it together with a white to create a lilac lavender base. I applied this all over with a foundation brush, patting most of it on as this will give a much more opaque, seamless finish. And then of course you really want to set this with a translucent powder to get rid of any of the tackiness from the cream, as well as make sure that any shine is reduced. Then, taking a NYX Hot Eyeshadow in teal, I use this color to start mapping out the contours of my face. I created a very straight angle on my nose bridge, which is rather tricky on my lopsided nose, but hey, you work with what you got, right? I then carried this color up over the brows, and taking some inspiration from my past self and my dark mermaid look, I decided to create a double contour on the cheeks. To do this, I just start the top contour where my hairline ends and pull it in a S shape down towards the sides of my mouth. And then I just make sure the line underneath kind of follows it, blending the color upwards. I really find looking straight at a mirror helps make sure that it's pretty even on both sides so that when you're taking frontal pictures, your contours will line up. I then also quickly added a little bit of shading to the sides of my mouth, just along my chin, and then around the nose to kind of hint at that idea of a widened dragon nose. And then you can move on to the eyes. To base out the eyes, I used a blue shadow stick and just blended this out with a brush in an elongated cat eye kind of shape. I just pulled it out towards the sides of my face. And then from there, I was able to take a dark green shimmer eyeshadow and just pack this on over top. The blue base gives a little bit of tackiness, so patting this on over top will help reduce fallout, as well as make sure you get a really opaque finish to the color. I pulled a little bit of this color underneath my eyes, as well as used it to help elongate that brow shape a little bit. And then to help finish off the eyes, I wanted to add a little bit more green, so I went in from an emerald to an acid green color, and then just a little bit of silver on the inner corner, just to make sure the eyes get a lot of focus and get a little bit softer towards the inside. To really define that nose to brow contour, I went ahead and used the NYX Jumbo Pencil in Milk, as well as a matte white eyeshadow, and just kind of straighten this line so that if you've overblended it all, you can kind of clean it up here. Underneath the eyes, I went in with a cobalt blue eyeshadow and extended the shape on the inner corner, before also adding in a cool toned purple just below that to add a little bit more color dimension. For this part, I really wanted to reference the idea of scales without actually creating hard line shapes. So to do this, I just took my teal eyeshadow on a small brush and applied it in little wispy, smoky fashions, moving away from the eye. I connected the lines along the inside to give that reptile feel, and then just blended the shadow out towards my hairline. With that same cobalt blue and the purple, I just deepened the contour along my brow bone and nose bridge and just blended upwards. And then taking a Cosmic Gel Liner from NYX, I just applied this to my waterline and set it with a black eyeshadow. Hang on to this gel liner because we will be using it quite a bit later on. For my eyeliner, I just took a black liquid liner and pulled this outwards. I created a kind of cat eye wing shape, but I pulled out a few extra little wisps to mimic that smoky effect from the teal. And then I also wanted to elongate the eye shape on my inner corners, so getting up close and personal with my mirror, I added in little tiny points to the inner corner. This is very hard to do on my eye shape, so if you have similar, just take your time and go slow. Now that the eyes are done, we of course have to start deepening the contours around the rest of the face and give more definition. So taking that same cobalt blue eyeshadow as well as the purple, I just deepened the different contours along my cheeks, around my nose and chin. This allows your entire look to be far more cohesive, as well as ensure that you get that really carved out, defined shape that you want from contouring in the first place. For the forehead, I really wanted to create a scale type crown that's a little bit inspired by Celtic knotwork. So I just mapped out a design with the Milk Jumbo pencil, and then with a black water activated face paint, I just went over this. Definitely take your time with this, especially if your hand is shaking. You can see I slowly get awkwardly close to my mirror as I'm super focusing on getting the lines clean and even with each other. Then for the scale part of the crown, I went back to that Cosmic Gel liner on a fine detail brush and just started laying little spiked triangle shapes on top of each other, and this will start the base for creating your scaling. Because you don't want the scales to get lost or muddied as you work on them, I did just quickly go over them with the same face paint. You could do this with a liquid liner as well. This just helps so that when you go over them with the gel liner right here, that they don't get lost and you can keep track of where you originally laid down your shapes. When I had the scales filled in, I went in with an iridescent teal pigment and just started applying this along where the scales would naturally pick up light. I also made sure to use a matte black eyeshadow to start shading where the scales overlap each other, just to give that more three-dimensional effect. Similar to like chainmail if you're looking up reference pictures. And then because I knew I wanted my scales to be two-toned, I also used an iridescent purple pigment and applied this to the opposite side of the teal. Then for a step that you could skip if you're not comfortable doing it, but does make a big difference for how legible the scales are, I took a white water-activated face paint on a super tiny detail brush and went ahead and highlighted the very edges of all of the scales. This contrasts really well with the black shadow you laid down already, and it makes sure that from far away, the scales are a lot more visible to be overlapping each other. I added the iridescent pigments to the knot design, as well as this super serious face I had on for doing the white highlighting along this area, because I was terrified I would screw it up. But then yay, shiny scales! Because I gave a lot of focus and detail to the eyes and forehead, I kept the lips super simple and just added a really light lilac liquid lipstick over top of them. And then it was finally time to move on to the neck and chest. As you can see, I already applied down a lot more of that foundation color that we mixed up earlier. And then, of course, you have to follow the face and the same steps. So I went ahead and put down the teal color. You can make some fun little shoulder movements to find out where your bones sit, and you can outline them or make up your own skeletal structure, whatever you like. And again, for any areas that you really want to appear recessed or defined more, just add in that same blue and purple color and just blend it out. All right, for the shoulder pauldron, or shoulder scaling, whatever you want to call it. I quickly mapped out where I wanted it to sit, both with the white jumbo pencil and then a blue one, as you can see here. This just helps really figure out where you want the scales to overlap each other and how far you want them to extend onto your chest. And then going back to that same Cosmic Metal gel liner, I started filling in all of the scales individually. Yes, this does take a long time, so get comfortable, put on your favorite Netflix, whatever you need to get through. And then for these, you can see it a lot more. I did them a little bit on the forehead ones, but on the shoulder, it's much easier to see. I added linings down the center to create that effect of a bevel to the scales, very similar to chainmail. And then going back to that matte black eyeshadow, I again went ahead and shaded around all of the scales to make sure they look like they're properly overlapping each other. And I kept the black a little bit more on one side of the bevel to create that bend and that look like one side is a little bit more shadowed than the other. I picked which side I wanted the iridescent pigments to sit on. For this, I just chose the purple to go on the lower side that was a little bit darker, since it would reflect a bit more. To make convincing scales, it is a lot of layering, a lot of little tedious steps, but they do add up to a good result, so they're worth the effort. I focused the purple along all the sides. If you have a buddy, you might want help with the back scales or just awkwardly bend your shoulder. And then, of course, following the purple is the same teal pigment from before, adding this to the upper side and carrying it all the way around the shoulder as well. It is honestly so satisfying when you start seeing the scales like come to life. I'm playing with my shoulder here just to see the reflect. Because through all the blending and different shadow applying, the scales can get a little fuzzy looking, so I went ahead and re-outlined all of them with the same black face paint. Again, you can just use a liquid liner here if you have that on hand. I wanted to pay really close attention to the ones on the outside, since those will be the most noticeable if you were to hiccup along the lines, but the ones on the inside you can be a little bit more loose with. I redefined some of that black shadow in areas that I thought needed it, and then for the next step, which will eat a little piece of your soul for how long and tedious it is, but it's worth the effort, I promise. So I just went back with that white face paint and individually outlined the scales. You can see here I didn't do a complete white line around all of the scales like I did with the black face paint, and this is just because when light tends to reflect off surfaces, it does so in pieces. So I used little short line work as well as some dotting to give that really shiny surface feel.
Did you think it was?
And then you will have a shiny, scaly shoulder. From there, just to make sure that the scales look like they're sitting on top of my shoulder, I did just add a little bit of shading around them with some gray eyeshadow as well as some black. And then moving on to the black face paint again, I started making the belt that would hold the shoulder piece on. For this, I just laid down the color and then also went over with a white and blended them together to create a gray tone that then can be highlighted and low lighted to add more dimension. The belt buckle I just mapped out with the white face paint as well. It picked up a little bit of a silvery tone going over top of the black, and then added the end of the belt just aiming downwards so you can create some shadowing and make it look a little bit more three-dimensional. I quickly drew out the dots for where the belt loops through, and then for highlighting the belt, I used a mix of the matte white eyeshadow as well as the face paint, just where it needed a little bit of stronger highlighting. And then of course again, to really make it look like it is underneath the scales, I added a little bit more black shadowing just at the edges there. Last but not least, you guys know I could not resist doing this. I went in with my white liquid liner from NYX and just added a few little detail dottings just around the cheek and eye area as well as on the neck, just to add a little bit more interest, and because I have a horrible addiction to adding dots to makeup looks. But that is it. The makeup is done for our Dragon Warrior. Last is to add in a pair of contacts, some lashes, as well as get ready for the wig. Thought these contacts were pretty perfect since they're like tiny reptile slits. And then for the next part, you may want to see if you can get a buddy to help out. I recruited my sister for this next part. So what I did was lay down a little bit of lace front tape on top of my wig cap as well as just on my forehead so that the wig would not move on me. As you can see, I put down the piece that the horns will attach to, and I of course will have a tutorial coming for you guys on how to do these horns. Having someone who can see a little bit better to remove that tape is definitely helpful. And then the horns will stay on their own, but I also decided to wrap some hair around them just to really secure them in place. You wouldn't have to be a hairstylist in your past life, would you, Dee?
Yes, I was. That's why my hair always looks amazing whenever you see me.
You could still be a lazy hairstylist. I tied the top portion of my hair back a bit so I could throw on my dragon ears as well. And then that is it for my Dragon Warrior look. I really hope you guys enjoyed this one. I had a ton of fun making it. As you can probably guess, there will be 2 DIYs coming down the pipe for you guys. If you want to see more tutorials like this, please hit that subscribe button, give a like, or just let me know in the comments. I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on how this turned out. Shout out to my sister for helping me out and bringing me food during a long film day. And as always, thank you guys so much for watching. I, of course, will see you next video. And until then, bye guys.
Did you think it was?
Now I feel like a dragon. Oh no!